Welcome to the JAMODI podcast. We are all surrounded by amazing coaches and leaders. So let's get an inside look at not just what they do, but how they do what they do. After all, becoming the best versions of ourselves is JAMODI, just a matter of doing it. Coaches, we are all searching for ways to better evaluate players in order to give meaningful feedback. Over 15 years ago, I put together a test called the JAMODI Skill Rating. The JSR takes players through a series of tests involving basketball skill or athleticism, giving them one rating at the end. Their JSR rating will give you clarity on what needs to be discussed with players and parents on areas they need to focus on improving. I test our players at least 4 times each year. They're able to compete against each other, past players' scores, and most importantly, their past performances. If you'd like to start testing your athletes, email me at jamodipodcast@gmail.com for more information.
Okay, 3 things that great players have. You have to have all 3 of them. You have to have talent, passion, and character. You have to have all 3 of those. Now, you think about great players, they all have that. You can't be missing one of them. So, but anyway, you think about great players, they have these things. Do you realize that Jordan, when he played for the Bulls, never lost a suicide in the 4 years that Craig Hodges, which is a great 3-point shooter, played with it. Maybe that thing's loose here. But anyway, so the great ones, that's what they do. You know, they have talent, character, and passion. Okay. And not just basketball, all sports. Okay. The Theory of Two by Kevin Eastman. Have you ever heard of it?
I've heard of Kevin Eastman, but not the Theory of Two.
Okay. He was a pro coach, assistant coach for years.
Yep.
And so on. But anyway, here's what he said. You get your whole team in front of you. It takes 2 minutes to show them a skill. Say any skill, blocking out, passing, anything you can think of. It takes 2 minutes to show them. Now, after they learn it, it takes 2 weeks for them to kind of figure it out by doing it every day for 2 weeks. Now, after 2 months of doing it every day, it takes 2 months before they feel comfortable enough to do it in a game. Isn't that amazing?
Yeah. Yeah. That means
So it takes a
just
long
doing something
time.
once isn't enough.
No, you're going to have to do it a lot to do it any good. You know, I coached for 13 years before I taught my players shot fakes. 13 years. And we had a game on Friday, and in practice on Thursday, I taught them shot fakes. I'll never forget this. And we went down the floor, and one kid, he faked a shot and put it in. And instead of running back down the middle of the floor, he ran by our bench. He said, "Coach Silver, that worked." You know, I thought, golly. But usually you can't learn it in one day. But
Right.
anyway, I thought that was amazing. But anyway, Theory of Two is you got to teach your stuff a lot, and you got to do it a lot of times. I have got a list of pet peeves I can send to coaches. There's a lot of pet peeves. My number one is probably jumping to pass, driving in the lane and jumping to pass. But I have got offensively and defensively, I've got all kinds of pet peeves. But anyway, we need
What
to
are
talk
some of your
about
main
that.
ones?
Jumping to pass, think dribbling in the manure. You know what that is?
That's
Huh?
PGC. Yeah.
Yeah, that's from them. But anyway, passing it through the manure for people, it's 3 feet from the sideline, the baseline, all the way around the court. If you dribble through there or pick the ball up through there or pass it to somebody in there, that's where you have lots of your turnovers. So that's a big one. I have a number of pet peeves. I'm kind of brain locked right now about
That's okay.
what's your number one pet peeve?
I would say as far as playing goes is going off of 1 foot at the wrong time. I think
Okay.
playing off of 2 feet is like the number one playmaker commandment is thou shalt be under control. And so how do you demonstrate control is you play off of 2 feet. That's not saying that you can't go off of 1 foot, but I would say that most players get into trouble or are out of control when they go off with 1 foot at the wrong time.
You're right. I think you're right. The other day, and I think you coaches that are listening to this should consider this, when they're watching games or tapes, turn off the volume. The other day, I turned on YouTube and I was watching Villanova play whenever Brunson played. Was playing. They had several good players. But anyway, as I watched it, I was literally shocked at watching that they always shot off 2 feet and the amazing amount of shot fakes that they made. That's what Jay Wright must have emphasized is shot fakes and playing off 2 feet. Because, I mean, every guy did it that caught the ball in this 2 minute sequence. And I didn't pick
Yeah.
up on it. But, I didn't get shots blocked when I was in high school too often because I always fake shots. And I thought when I started coaching that kids would kind of know to fake a shot. Well, crud, they don't know.
I've tried to tell my guys this, and I think it's good to remind them that if your shot gets blocked, you made the wrong decision. And your shot getting blocked is an error. I think sometimes they view their shot getting blocked as if they didn't do anything wrong. The other player just made a great play. But I don't view it like that. I think you should go an entire game without your shot getting blocked. Any shots getting blocked. And if they
Right.
are, it's because of the decision making that we're using in those moments.
I think another thing that's a good point. Shouldn't do it. Another thing that I never did when I played was step on a line. When you have the ball, step on. In a crucial situation, Houston had a guy, L.J. Cryer. He stepped on the
Yeah.
line.
Yeah.
I know you're out there hustling your butt off. But anyway, but you're right. You shouldn't get shots blocked. You should know how to figure out some way to throw in some crap up there where you don't get it blocked. You know, and so on. But anyway, uh, now you need to write this down. Do you like Dan Dockich? You know who Dan Dockich is? He played at at Indiana years ago, and he has talk shows.
Yes, I remember
Oh,
him. Yep. He's
oh,
very opinionated, right?
oh, he's very opinionated. Yes, but I like him. But he said this,
Yeah.
and I never heard it before, and I think you ought to write it down. The ball finds hustle. You ever heard that? Now I'm going to
Oh,
explain this to you.
yeah.
It's true. I think you ought to make a sign and put it up in your locker room.
I like
There's
it.
a lot of
Yeah.
signs that we could have in there. The ball finds hustle. Now, what it is, if you hustle your butt off, the ball will just end up with you, come to you. I mean, it's like magic. But anyway, I used to watch Waco High play before my grandkids started playing. I'd go over and watch Waco High play games. It's not far from my house. And then this one kid, he was a football player. He was about 5, 6, or 7. And he was about the 8th or ninth man. He would have played for me, but he didn't play that much. But when the coach would put him in, he would literally fly all over the gym. The ball just came to it. Every time the ball just came to it. I was just amazed. And then I'd heard Dockage say the ball finds hustle. I said, that is true. I had never thought of that. So I think it's something good to get in our minds. The ball finds hustle.
Love that
You've
phrase. And
heard the
that's as
saying,
a past Mr. Hustle Award winner at Baylor. I was that for 2 years. And at the time I thought Coach Bliss is just making up an award so that he could give me something, at the end of the year. But I ended up really valuing that. And I think you're right on the money. I used to believe, and maybe it was ball handling also, but if I played hard enough and that ball was loose, that I would come up with it. And I really believe that happened quite a bit. And I think that quote, there's a lot of truth to that.
well, that's a real honor. I always liked Coach Bliss. He was really good to me. You know,
Yeah.
I'd like to call him, but I don't have his phone number. Have you heard the saying, fake a pass to make a pass, right? I have another step beyond that. You ready? Fake a pass.
Yeah.
By the way, this is the one thing that coaches do wrong. You've got to teach your inbounder on out of bounds plays against presses to fake a pass to make a pass. They don't fake when they're standing out of bounds. Just
Right.
you got to.
Right.
Part 2 of that is fake a shot to take a shot when you're in traffic. Fake a pass to make a pass, fake a shot to take a shot, particularly when you drive to the goal. Guys will just put it up there. You got to fake. So I think both of those kids love little quotable things, little
Right.
things like that to say. I think you win the game this way, two ways. I've said this before. You win the game with points in the paint and free throws. Now, I know threes are huge. I know you're a big 3-point guy, and you got to make some. But you win the game with points in the paint and free throws. Okay. Now, this is one reason why Kelvin Sampson's successful and probably why I wasn't in a lot of ways. And most coaches are a failure because of this. They play favorites. Kelvin Sampson does not play favorites. He had one guy that was a 4-year starter for him that, they have practice on the day of a game. I mean, they have a full practice on the day of a game for probably about an hour. This guy kind of loafed. He'd started 4 years. He didn't start that night. He doesn't play favorites. And I think we need to all remember that. It's huge. Now, you need to write this down, Matt. The Steve Alford rebounding drill. It's on YouTube. It's a 2-on-2 team rebounding drill thing. Play to five baskets. Incredible. Best rebounding drill ever. It's kind of an offensive, defensive type thing. Okay, I was going to tell you about left-handers, correct?
That's right.
Now, don't laugh. I think left-handers catch on to things quicker than right-handers. Now, my wife is left-handed. Of course, catching on quicker than me is not real hard. But I think that you've got to, I think left-handers are smart people. And I like having them on the basketball team. And so, but anyway, just remember that theory. Left-handers catch on to things quick, and it's great to have left-handers play. Okay, next, this is why a lot of coaches fail. They're not consistent on their discipline. If the best player acts up in a classroom, he doesn't get in a lot of trouble. But if the 10th guy on the team acts up, he might really get him. I learned from John Chaney. Do you
That's
remember
huge.
John Chaney? Do
Oh,
you
yeah.
remember
From
John Chaney
Temple?
when he coached at Temple? He says most coaches aren't willing to do this, but he was, because he was a real disciplinarian. He said they're not willing to lose a game to make a point. So he would suspend good players if they acted up. Okay, there's two types of coaches. There's two types of coaches, born coaches and made coaches. I'm a made coach. Some coaches are just born,
What's the
but
difference
I have
between the
spent
two?
the born coaches, they really don't have to go to any clinics. They're the ones out in the hall at the clinics. And they'll beat you. And I'm in there taking notes, trying to learn something, and they're whipping me. They just have a knack for this, and I can't say what it is, but and some people are just know how to do it. And I can't say exactly what that is. What do you
Okay.
think?
I think it probably has more to do with presence, the communication
Uh-huh.
style of somebody, because I think you can learn a lot of X's and O's and strategy, but
Mm-hmm.
when I'm in a gym and I'm listening to a guy and he just or a girl, a lady, and they just command the room. They get people's attention. They speak clearly and there's an energy to it. I just think to myself, like,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. They've got it. But then the question for a guy like me who wants it is, how do I get it? And I don't know. And that, to your point, I think there is
Yes.
some of these, but coach, isn't that the same in any field? Where I had a buddy in high school, his name was Ryan Coyle. He played on our basketball team, and he was one of the best teammates I've ever been with. His job was to get me a lot of shots and warm-ups. That's what he brought to our team. But Ryan was also a genius, and Ryan was either a salutatorian, definitely top 10, and at the Colony where we had, 590 in our class, like, that's a big deal.
Okay.
He didn't study. he would look at something one time and it just stuck and he had it. And so you're gifted in different areas. And I mean,
Uh-huh.
I think there's just going to be some guys that have it, and not that they don't work hard, but they can just get the most or the best out of people. And then there's those like, and I would put myself in the hopefully the made category that, man, you just have to work really, really hard to get there.
Right. I think being made, it's really kind of fun. It's taken me a lot of years, to learn this thing. I mean, last year,
Yeah.
I'm 78 now. 77, you'd been to this point guard college thing, right?
Yep.
Well, I learned about peeking at the rim, right? Which they teach there, and stop on a dime.
Yeah.
People look at this game, but they don't know it. I knew that, but I didn't know how to put it in words. When you catch the ball, you should peek at the rim. That way you see the whole floor. Even if you're a postman and have your back to the basket, you should peek at the rim before you do anything. But I thought that was just one of the most amazing things I've ever learned about basketball. And I mean, you're never going to learn all this game. I don't see how a kid say he could get bored with it. Every play is different. Everything's different. I still have fun with it. Okay. Late game situations. Quickly. Don't think plays, think players. That's true of all sports. Just get it to somebody that can make a play and let them make a play for the team. That okay, I think in high school basketball you don't need more than 10 kids on a team. You know why? You get
Yeah.
12, you got problems.
That's right.
10's enough. You got to practice. I think the fewer the better. I mean, junior high and stuff like that, you want to have more. And
Yeah, you
I think
kind of
if you're
want it to be
coaching
like a
junior high, go ahead.
pyramid, right? You want it to be a pyramid where junior high, there's a lot, and then it just
Yes.
gets smaller and smaller as you go up. And but I agreed. I think the years where I tried to carry a lot of guys or even play a lot of guys, yeah, I had more problems. And Coach Thomas had a great quote. He said, "If you cut them in August, they're not mad at you in January." And I always thought about that with having too many people. But you're right. I think you want to have guys that have an opportunity to play, and if they're not going to, then they better be high culture guys that understand. Danny Henderson said he had just those honest conversations with seniors before the season of, you will not step on the floor at all, and preparing them for that, and then giving them the choice whether they wanted to really do that or not.
I think that's smart. And so on. Okay, let's see. 10 on a team. When you take a kid out of the game, I think this is good. Don't say nothing to him. Don't say anything to him. Just let him come on out of the game and sit down. And before you put him in, tell him what he did wrong. Because he's just going to be mad at you when you took him out of the game. You got me? I think
Yep.
that's important to do. Let's see. I wrote down here, I don't know how important this is. The team that fouls the most usually loses.
Yeah, I think
You
that goes
can't
back to
foul a
your
lot.
paint and free throws rule, right?
Right. Uh huh. Kelvin Sampson has a charge drill on YouTube. Every coach needs to do it. Nobody will get hurt. Have you seen it? You drive in there and you play off 2 feet, so nobody gets hurt.
Yeah.
Now, this is what I want to say is for people that live around the Houston area. There's a guy down there that's a trainer named Jawan Player. He has the greatest name in the world. His last name is Player, but it's spelled Plair. He gives lessons. He's a trainer. He's a genius. He could take a kid. He can notice stuff. He's like you, Matt. He loves basketball, and he has some stuff on YouTube. But if you send your kid there to him, he could really help him be a player. He's a sharp guy. Like I say, has some stuff there. Jawan Player. Do you remember LeVar Ball? That's LaMelo Lonzo
Yep.
Ball. That's his dad. He seems
I
like a
do.
nut,
Yeah.
but he knows something that comes from the Bible. That's why things turn out. He says, it says in the Bible, you get what you say. So, in other words, what you say out loud, you get in life. Did you know that?
Hmm.
That's why you shouldn't say
I've
bad
heard
things about yourself.
Right, right.
Muhammad Ali was like this, or Cassius Clay. He would say he was the greatest, and go on about how he was the greatest boxer. You know what? He was. LeVar Ball talked about how great his boys were going to be in basketball. And you know what? They've ended up being great, you know.
Yeah.
And so I think we need to speak things into the air, and it's amazing how it works, and so on. Kids are listening to you, even though they don't act like it. I
That's
won't
good.
go into
Yeah.
this, but I was sitting in a class. I'll hit it quick. In 1963, I was a sophomore in high school. And the lady teacher, which I thought she was old, she was probably 45 or 50. I thought she was really old. And I really did. And she said that every 2,000 years, something major happens. I immediately got out my pen or paper and figured out. I was born in 1947. I figured out that I bet you Jesus comes back to earth in 2000. And I said I'd be 53. I remember that in class. Nobody else was paying attention. I generally didn't pay attention, but I remember that just like it was yesterday. So you never know what kids are listening that you say. Say plenty of stuff that's valuable. Remember this: a coach changes more lives in 1 year than most people do in a lifetime. Do you know who said that?
Billy Graham.
Billy Graham, and he's right. And I say this: a coach is the most important person at school. Do you know that everybody that goes to school remembers the coach? They remember the coaches. I
Yeah.
think we're the most important people at school. And so we got to watch what we're doing and do a good job. But anyway, I think it's
That's a
amazing.
good reminder. That's a good reminder.
Okay. I think when you come to school every day, you may do this. You should fist bump all your players and you should touch them. Coach K would touch all his players every day. Touch them on the back, give them a high five, do something. Let's see. There's two players that can't have a bad practice. Two people that can't have a bad practice: the head coach and the best player. I think the most important people in America are preachers, the policemen, doctors, and coaches.
A good list.
Okay, you need to go to Google and get Bill Self's press break. Run it against all presses, even man to man, all presses except 3/4 court 1-2-2 presses and 2-2-1 zone presses. Just run domino against those. That's great. That'll work all the time. And once the ball comes in against the press, the last place on Bill Self's press breaker to throw it to is back to the inbounder. Roy Williams has a thing on YouTube you need to watch. It's not him doing it, but it's his zone offense. It's how to kill a zone. But since I knew Coach Holiday taught me this zone offense. And it doesn't just kill 2-3 zones, it works against every single zone. If you can imagine this is okay, it's kind of cut the thing off here. Okay, here's what you do against zones. Ready? You line up with a point and two wings, and they are freelance players against all zones. You put two postmen on the block, and they can play out of 7 spots: the blocks, short corner, elbows, in the middle of the free throw line. They're freelance players and they're moving. They're a team. The 3 players on the outside are freelance players. They're moving the ball, trying to get it inside, look for threes, drive. Works against every zone. If it's a half court trap, you just move one of the postmen up to kind of get into the middle of it, and you just play. It's incredible. But go to YouTube and watch how to kill a 2-3 zone.
By Roy Williams.
Well, it's by somebody else. It's North Carolina playing, and it's Roy Williams stuff.
Okay.
If you're up the last 3 minutes of the game, you need to run a delay game. If it's 1 point, spread them out, shoot layups and free throws, and you need to go to a triangle and 2 in the last 3 minutes. Larry Brown did it his whole career, and nobody even knew it.
Like that. Yeah.
Okay, to get people to remember something when you're giving a speech or talking to your team, Trump does this if you watch him. He says something 3 times during that speech, something he wants to emphasize. And if you want to emphasize something, say it 3 times. You're talking you're doing it at a sports banquet or something. Anytime you want to emphasize something, you say it 3 times. No 1-foot layups, even warming up. Make them shoot them off 2 feet warming up. You got to develop that habit. I told you, said something earlier. I've got 160 tweets I can send out to coaches that, just an attachment, and they can copy them. They're these things. There are more of them. Some people have an extra heartbeat. Have you ever heard that? Some people have an extra heartbeat. Have you ever heard of Hayden Fry? He used to be the coach years ago, football at Iowa, and really SMU. This is 100 years ago, close to 100 years. But anyway, he noticed that some players have an extra heartbeat. They're special. They can do things. Jordan, of course, had an extra heartbeat. Kobe, I know those are great ones, but there's others that have this too. Vince Young had it at Texas in football. He had an extra heartbeat. You can kind of go through and look at him. I think Ant has it for the Timberwolves. He has an extra heartbeat. He's just a little immature. Just different ones they're special. I only coached one player that had an extra heartbeat. His son is a starting cornerback now for University of Colorado. So the boy must have an extra heartbeat too, or something. He's good. But anyway, you don't find it often. Did you ever play with anybody at Baylor that had it? Did you ever play with anybody that had extra heartbeat? You played with, what's his name, Darren Williams.
Yeah, Darren Williams, Terry Black. I would say maybe the way that he was able to play, maybe he did. Yeah, I can see that.
But it's just an unusual trait that people have.
Yeah.
Couple more and I'll quit.
Okay.
Late in the game, 7 seconds and under. You got me?
Yes, sir.
And you're up 3. Foul them out there where they're dribbling, make the free throw and get the rebound. I've never seen a high school team lose by fouling. I have seen a college team lose, but never in high school. That's good. And not bragging, but the 2 best things that I do as a coach are out of bounds plays. I think you can score 10% of your points on out of bounds plays, and scouting. In football, the first 10 years I was at La Vega High School, we didn't have huddle. I had to go scout every Friday night. So I only saw us play football the last game of the year, because used to just one team went into the playoffs. They didn't have so many teams like they do now. So I had to figure out, and I like kind of scouting. And so in basketball, I can figure them out. Like I even called Kelvin Sampson. He's the only Division I coach that talks to me. I didn't call him. I texted him. I said, look, Walter, what's his name? Clayton the third or the second, the guy that played for Florida.
Yeah.
By the way, I think he could be the next Curry, but I over exaggerate sometimes.
Wow.
He's good.
Wow.
I said, when it comes right down to it, he's going to go left to shoot it when he gets it. So you know what he did? He made the shot that won the game. They called a good play, and he went to his left and made it. You just can kind of know things. Like I can go out there and look at players. These players all want to do this. 99% of the kids that play basketball are not going to get a scholarship. Only 1% get them, and they're usually over 6'4". I can look at a guy in about 5 minutes and tell if he can play or not. In fact, I ran into a coach years ago that was an assistant. They had an AAU tournament thing at Baylor. I was over there watching. I was sitting with the assistant coach from the University of Kentucky. And I asked him, I said, how about this LeBron James? I've heard of him. He was just in the 9th grade. Nobody'd heard of him, but I'd read about him, heard about him. He says, Coach, I've already watched him play. He said, I watched him play for 3 minutes against the best seniors in America, and I could clearly tell he was the best player on the floor, and he hadn't shot yet. Isn't that amazing?
Thank you for checking out today's episode. Please take a moment to subscribe to this podcast, share it with your fellow coaches, and find us on social media for what's coming up next on the JAMODI podcast. It's just a matter of doing it.